Dreamwalker Diaries, Episode 1, The Clockmaker's Secret Welcome, Dear Dreamer, to a place where night listens and the stars remember. This is the first entry in the Dreamwalker Diaries, a tale to carry you into sleep, slowly and sweetly, like a feather drifting across moonlit waters. Tonight's story begins in a town where time slows down the moment you arrive, a place called Edenvale. It is nestled between forested hills and forgotten maps, where lanterns glow with memory and cobblestones remember the footsteps of dreamers. And in the center of this quiet town, hidden beneath ivy and thyme, stood a crooked little tower filled with clocks. Not ordinary clocks, mind you. These clocks ticked softly, each one whispering a different sound. Some hummed lullabies, others recited poems. One murmured the sound of rain on an old wooden roof. Another, it was said, ticked in time with the dreams of a girl who once wished to fly. And there, in that tower, lived a man named Master Elowin, the clockmaker. Elowin was old, not just in years, but in the way his eyes held entire seasons, whole lifetimes. He wore spectacles perched always at the tip of his nose, and a leather apron that smelled of cedar, ink, and thyme. No one knew quite how long he had been there. He'd always been like the tower itself, and for as long as anyone could remember. He had wound the town's great bell tower, repaired pocket watches, and shaped clocks that did more than tell time. They remembered. He was kind, quiet, and kept to himself. But lately, something had changed. The clocks in his window no longer chimed. He stopped greeting children who passed, and at night, townsfolk could see the flicker of his lantern pacing endlessly, as though the clockmaker no longer slept. Far beyond Edenvale, beyond the veil of waking life, there walked another soul, a traveler known by few names and many stories. Some called him the Dreamwalker. He wore a long coat that changed colors in moonlight and boots that made no sound. He carried with him a journal bound in silver thread, where the dreams of others were written, recorded gently with every step he took across the sleeping world. One evening, as stars stretched over the world like a blanket, the Dreamwalker paused. In the air, he felt something ... off. A tear in the threads of dreaming. A ticking that had gone ... silent. He turned his eyes to Edenvale. He arrived by moonbeam. No one saw him step onto the cobbled square. He passed through the sleepy market, past shuttered bakeries and dim lanterns. And when he reached the crooked tower, he knocked once. Just once. Elowin opened the door. Slowly, his eyes were shadowed, rimmed in exhaustion. But in them, the Dreamwalker saw the shimmer of something else. Desperation. "I knew you'd come," Elowin whispered, stepping aside. The workshop was quiet, too quiet. Hundreds of clocks lined the walls, yet none ticked. Gears, pendulums, chains, all still. Even the great orrery in the corner, which once spun gently to track the stars, sat motionless. The clockmaker led the Dreamwalker to a desk. Upon it sat a clock unlike any other, delicate silver, with glass that shimmered like moonlight on water, but it was unfinished. The hour hand floated, disconnected. The face was empty of numbers, and at its center, a keyhole glowed faintly. "I've tried to finish it," Elowin said, his voice trembling. "It's meant to measure memories, not time. But the key is gone. I saw it in a dream once, and I can't find it again." The Dreamwalker nodded. He placed one hand over the clock and closed his eyes. A breeze moved through the room, though the windows stayed shut. The lights dimmed, and softly, the world began to dissolve. Eowyn's dream was vast, a landscape of floating gears and staircases that led nowhere. Books drifted through, the air whispering lullabies in languages lost. The Dreamwalker walked through it with care, his footsteps stirring memories like dust. In the dream, Eowyn was a boy again. He stood in a meadow of clocks, each one ticking at a different pace. In his hand was a golden key, and in front of him, a woman knelt beside a glowing clock. "Your mother," the Dreamwalker whispered. The boy Eowyn turned and nodded. "She made the first memory clock," he said. "She told me, ... clocks should hold love, not just time." The golden key shimmered in his hand, but as the memory shifted, it fell, spiraling through the dream, lost in a tide of forgotten thoughts. The Dreamwalker leapt through libraries, buried in sand, ... through forests grown from lullabies, ... through a cathedral where bells rang in slow motion, until finally he found it. The golden key lay inside a glass bubble, floating above a lake made of still water and starlight. He reached in, ... and took it. When he awoke, Eowyn sat upright in his chair. The Dreamwalker, pale and calm, placed the golden key into his hand. The clockmaker cried, not loudly, just a single tear that traced down a weathered cheek. He inserted the key. The memory clock shimmered, ... then began to tick. With each chime, a soft golden pulse spread through the room. One by one, the other clocks stirred. They ticked gently, they whispered again. Outside, the great bell tower chimed once, and the town, though already asleep, seemed to smile. The next morning, the people of Edenvale found the air ... lighter. The clocks in their homes were somehow warmer to the touch, and in their dreams the night before, many had seen flickers of old memories, of those they'd lost, of songs forgotten, of joys tucked away like letters in a drawer. And the tower's clocks, they sang, not music exactly, but stories, woven in ticks and chimes, a symphony of memory. As for the Dreamwalker, he left before dawn, quiet as always. But in his silver-threaded journal, a new entry appeared. The clockmaker's secret, memory retrieved, heart restored, time remembers. And somewhere in the space between one heartbeat and the next, he stepped into the next dream. And now, dear dreamer, as the clocks of your world tick softly in the night, ... let go of the day behind you. Let the story settle like snowflakes upon your thoughts. The Dreamwalker will walk again, and when he does, ... you may already be dreaming. Good night. Title: Dreamwalker Diaries, Episode 2, The Librarian of Silent Hollow. Welcome once again, dear dreamer, to a realm where twilight listens and dreams unfurl like the pages of a forgotten book. Tonight, your path winds through a valley hidden from the maps of waking minds, a place where the wind carries whispers and the moonlight writes verses in silver ink. This is Silent Hollow, and it is not a place one stumbles upon. It is summoned only when a dreamer needs it most, nestled deep between hills of lavender and dusk-colored trees. Silent Hollow is a village known only to those who remember the warmth of stories and the ache of forgotten tales. And at the center of this quiet haven stands the Hollow Archive, a library that holds not books, but dreams long shelved. They rest inside jars of light and coils of cloud, each glowing faintly with memories of laughter, sorrow, and wonder. And within this archive dwells its guardian, a woman called Mistress Leora, the librarian. She moves with the softness of falling leaves and speaks in tones like echoing lullabies. Her eyes, violet and ancient, read the truth in dreams before they are spoken. Each night, she walks the spiral halls of the archive, tending to the sleeping dreams and gently dusting the memories of 1,000 forgotten souls. But lately, Leora had noticed something troubling. A whole wing of the archive had dimmed. The dreams there were flickering, unraveling, their light vanishing like mist in morning sun. Pages within the memory scrolls had gone blank, and in the deep silence that had settled, a shadow stirred, something that fed not on fear, but on forgetting. It was this silence the Dreamwalker heard. One evening, as the moon traced silver ribbons across the sky, he paused upon a hill and listened. And in the quiet that followed, he heard the unspoken, a story in danger of being lost. And so he walked again, across the folds of slumber and into the twilight path that led to Silent Hollow. He arrived beneath a tree of glowing blossoms, where the wind carried the scent of old ink and stardust. The librarian greeted him at the gates of the archive, her eyes wide with relief. "Dreamwalker," she said, "1,000 stories are vanishing. They slip from memory before dawn. I fear something is feeding on them, and I cannot remember what it is I've forgotten." He nodded, his silver-threaded journal glowing softly in his coat. The archive's doors creaked open, revealing endless corridors of bottled dreams, shelves of forgotten lullabies, and scrolls humming with long-lost laughter. Together, they walked deeper into the heart of the library, where even sound felt sacred. And there, in the center of the dimmed wing, they found it not a creature, not quite, but a shape, like a tear in the air itself, quivering with hunger. It had no face, no name, only an endless need. It pulsed with absence. As they approached, a scroll crumbled to dust beside them. "The devourer of stories," Leora whispered. "It is older than memory. It exists where forgotten dreams gather, feeding on what is unloved, unread, unremembered." The Dreamwalker reached into his coat and withdrew a small mirror, one etched with ancient runes. He held it before the tear, and slowly the shadow's edges recoiled. In the mirror it saw its own emptiness, and it howled, though not aloud. The sound was a feeling, the ache of something once cherished, now vanished. The Dreamwalker whispered then, words not of power, but of memory. He spoke a story, one that belonged to no book, one made from stardust and lullabies. It was the first dream ever dreamed, a child laughing beneath a sky of candles, a song sung in a language only the heart could recall. The tear quivered ... and began to mend. The shadow dissolved like smoke, drawn into the warmth of a fire. The silence lifted. All around them, the dreams began to glow once more. Scrolls unfurled, bottled dreams pulsed with color. Forgotten names returned to the shelves. The librarian wept softly, pressing her hand to her chest. "You remembered what I could not," she said, "and you've given it back to us." The Dreamwalker placed the mirror upon the altar at the heart of the archive. A reminder, he said, that even silence can be healed with a story. As dawn's blush crept over the horizon, he walked once more beneath the glowing tree. The librarian watched him vanish beyond the lavender hills. In his silver-threaded journal, new ink unfurled across the page. Silent Hollow, the librarian's burden, memory restored, dreamlight rekindled, silence named. And now, dear dreamer, as your mind drifts gently toward sleep, know that somewhere a story has been saved, perhaps even one of yours. The Dreamwalker walks still, through the hush of twilight, guarding what we forget until we remember again. Let your breath slow, let your thoughts drift, and perhaps, tonight, your dream, too, will find its place in the archive. Good night. Dreamwalker Diaries, Episode 3, The Painter of Midnight Whispers, as starlight shimmered across the vast ocean of dreams, and the constellations turned like gentle gears in the sky. The dreamwalker felt the subtle tug of another forgotten longing, calling to him from the edge of the slumbering world. He followed the echo across fields of moon-touched wheat and through forests where the leaves hummed lullabies. The trail led him to a forgotten village nestled on the edge of a mirror lake, a place known only in dreams as Athena. In this place, every reflection shimmered with memory, and time pooled like ink in a still jar. At the heart of Athena stood a crumbling tower coated in ivy that whispered secrets. This was the home of Corvian, the painter of midnight whispers, an old dream artisan whose brush once captured the feelings between moments, the sighs between words, and the shadows of thoughts never spoken. Corvian had not been seen by any dream being in many cycles, and rumor said his heart had quieted, and with it, the dreaming colors began to fade. The sky above Athena had dulled, the lake no longer reflected the stars, and the dreams of the villagers arrived in shades of grey and sorrow. When the dreamwalker arrived, the air was thick with stillness. He stepped into the tower and climbed its winding stairs, past murals once alive with glimmering hues now dulled to silence. At the top chamber, he found Corvian hunched before a blank canvas, eyes dim, hands trembling, surrounded by brushes hardened with time. The painter turned slowly, recognizing the silver-threaded journal in the dreamwalker's hands. "I have forgotten the color of dreams," Corvian said, voice cracking like old parchment. "They used to sing to me. Now all I hear is hush." The dreamwalker placed his journal upon the floor and opened its latest entry, a whisper from silent. Hollow, a shimmer of laughter restored, and a memory healed. The dreamwalker spoke of stories rekindled, of scrolls glowing once more, of the silence named and soothed. As he spoke, something flickered in Corvian's eyes, the faintest hue, a shimmer of indigo grief and golden hope. The dreamwalker reached into his coat and brought out a single vial of dreamlight, salvaged from the hollow archive, swirling with color too old to name. Corvian took it with trembling hands and poured it gently onto the blank canvas. It spread, not like paint, but like memory, deep and endless. From the color bloomed a scene, a child chasing fireflies on the eve of a forgotten celebration, a mother singing to the stars, a hand reaching for another in a moment before goodbye. And Corvian began to paint again. Each stroke summoned a forgotten story, each swirl a sigh once unheard. The room filled with color and music, the tower itself trembling with life. Outside, the sky over Athena shimmered. The stars returned. To the lake's mirror, dreams among the villagers turned vivid, tender, rich. And from that day, Corvian painted once more, not alone, but guided by dreams brought to him each night by the dreamwalker, who now visited often, leaving stories in jars of light and dew. As dawn approached, the dreamwalker stood beside the lake, his reflection rippling like parchment in the wind. In his journal, fresh ink formed, Athena, the painter's silence broken, dreams recolored, memory in motion, whispers heard. And as you drift now, dear dreamer, beneath your own canopy of stars, know that somewhere a brush glides across canvas made of night, and your quietest feelings may yet be painted in the sky. Let go, breathe deep, And perhaps, tonight, you too will visit Ethermaze. Episode 4. The garden where time sleeps beneath a velvet sky embroidered with slowly turning stars. The dreamwalker walked the threshold between slumber and story once more, his boots dusted with moon pollen and his silver-threaded journal aglow with faint anticipation. A breeze scented with memory and moss curled through the twilight, guiding him to a forgotten path of stone steps overgrown with drowsy ivy. They led to a place only spoken of in dreams within dreams, the garden where time sleeps. It was hidden, deep within the folds of the sleeping world, where the tick of clocks melted into birdsong, and the concept of hours dissolved, like sugar in warm tea. Here, time rested, not in seconds, but in petals, dewdrops, and the hush of leaves breathing. The garden was guarded by a singular being named Eloan, the keeper of hours, a gentle figure cloaked in robes of dusk and dawn. Her hair woven with starlight, and her eyes the color of slow sunsets. She moved without sound, her presence like the sigh of a dream remembered upon waking. Eloan welcomed the dreamwalker with a nod, leading him through the spiraling paths where flowering vines carried the scent of lost afternoons, and crystal hummingbirds hovered in still air. All around them bloomed moments, trapped in stasis, lovers frozen in a kiss. A child paused mid-laughter, a cat forever stretching toward a sunbeam, each encased in delicate glass spheres hanging from silver branches. These were the lost moments, fragments of time misplaced, forgotten or stolen by grief, doubt, or haste. The dreamwalker paused beside a tree, cradling a memory he recognized, a young girl whispering a story to the stars, her eyes wide with wonder, a moment he had once seen fade from a child who had grown too fast. Eloan touched the sphere gently, her voice barely louder than the breeze. Time once lost can sometimes be remembered, but never reclaimed. We preserve it here, to remind dreamers of the beauty they rushed past. But there was trouble in the garden. Some of the branches had begun to wilt. Several spheres were cracked, leaking motes of light that fell to the soil and vanished like morning mist. Time was unraveling, even in this sacred place. Eloan led the dreamwalker to the center of the garden, where an ancient sundial stood shattered, its gnomon missing, the shadow of its wisdom gone. The balance has been broken, she said, voice tinged with sadness. Something or someone has stolen time itself, not ours, but the meaning behind them. The dreamwalker reached into his journal, which pulsed with quiet urgency. From its pages, he drew forth a folded parchment containing a map made not of ink, but of starlight and old lullabies. Following its glimmer, they ventured into the hidden roots beneath the garden, a cavern of sleeping gears and singing sands, where time was once tended like a garden. There they found the thief, not a creature, but a mirror cracked and hungry, reflecting not the dreamer's image, but what they feared they'd never have time to do. It had grown from forgotten intentions, regrets unspoken, and promises left behind. It stole time by making dreamers doubt their worth. The dreamwalker approached the mirror and, instead of resisting, whispered to it every moment he had wasted, every second he had mourned, every heartbeat filled with hesitation. The mirror quivered, fed not by denial, but by acceptance. Then he turned his back to it, and in doing so, it shattered, unable to bear being unseen. From the shards, the gnomon of the sundial reformed, and Eloan placed it reverently where it belonged. Time resumed its soft breath, the cracked spheres mended, and the garden bloomed brighter than before. As the dreamwalker prepared to leave, Eloan pressed a seed into his hand, the seed of a second chance, and whispered, not all lost time is gone forever. Some merely waits to be noticed. Back in his journal, a new entry blossomed. Garden of sleeping time, balance restored, hours mended, lost moments remembered, regret redeemed. And now, dear dreamer, as your thoughts grow quiet and your eyelids grow heavy, know that every moment you give to wonder, every breath you spend in stillness, is a blossom in that garden. Let time rest tonight. Let it curl around you like a cat in the sun. And perhaps, while you sleep, a forgotten moment of your own will find its way back home. Good night. Dreamwalker Diaries, Episode 5, The Archivist of the Endless Stair Beneath. A sky veiled in clouds that shimmered with forgotten lullabies. The dreamwalker returned once more to the delicate threshold of story and sleep, guided by the subtle pull of a tale half remembered. His silver-threaded journal pulsed warmly as he crossed a field of silent bells that bloomed with echoes instead of petals, each chime a whisper of a life once dreamed. Tonight, the path led him to the endless stair, a spiraling tower of impossible height hidden in the folds of deep slumber, where the laws of gravity bowed to imagination and each step shimmered with flickers of memory. The stair had no beginning and no true end, winding like a ribbon of stardust up through the clouds and into the spaces between dreams. At the base of the staircase stood a tall door carved from moonstone, its surface engraved with languages forgotten by time. Within waited the archivist, a being known to few and remembered by fewer, cloaked in robes that shifted like parchment in a breeze, their eyes a mosaic of ancient texts. The archivist guarded the tower of forgotten tomes, a library suspended in the spiral where books were not merely read, but felt, each a living memory, a dream once dreamt, a moment once missed. The dreamwalker was welcomed in silence and led up the swirling stair, past shelves that stretched endlessly in all directions, each filled with volumes bound in starlight, dew, and shadow. Yet something was wrong. Many books had begun to dim, their titles vanishing, their pages turning to dust before their stories could be remembered. Dreams were disappearing before they could be lived, their essence fading into nothingness. The archivist explained in a voice like wind through ancient trees that something was feeding on the stories. Before they were born, a void born from the growing doubt of dreamers who had stopped believing their stories mattered. They passed a great hall of memory, where translucent tapestries displayed the potential dreams of those not yet asleep, wavering and flickering like candlelight. In wind, the dreamwalker opened his journal and found it weeping ink, a sign that even his collected whispers were being forgotten. With urgency, the archivist led him to the heart of the tower, where the source page lay, a vast parchment made from the breath of the first storyteller, suspended in mid-air and inked by the collective dreaming of all minds. A darkness had begun to blot it out, not a monster, not a shadow, but a silence so deep it unraveled narrative itself. To restore the source page, the dreamwalker had to offer a memory not from the past, but from a future yet to be dreamt. He sat beside the parchment and closed his eyes, imagining a world where stories still mattered, a child clutching a bedtime tale, a grandmother whispering history into the wind, a lonely soul comforted by a story told just in time. The memory formed like crystal, and from it he drew a single drop of starlit ink. With it, he wrote a single line upon the source page: "There will always be someone who needs this story." The blot hesitated, then dissolved into shimmering light. The tower pulsed with warmth, and across the shelves, fading books were reborn. Flickering with renewed purpose, titles returned. Pages rewrote themselves. Dreams restored their right to be dreamt. The archivist bowed low and handed the Dreamwalker a token, a quill made from the feather of the first word, to write truths when hope falters. As the Dreamwalker descended the endless stair, the journals on his back felt heavier, but not with burden, with meaning. A new entry formed as the sky lightened. Tower of endless stare, silence overcome. Stories restored, doubt transfigured, the future remembered. And now, dear dreamer, as you lay your thoughts to rest, know that every story you've loved, forgotten, or never dared to tell still lives, nestled in the spiral tower between stars, waiting only to be dreamt. Sleep gently, and perhaps tonight, you too will climb the stair. Dreamwalker Diaries, Episode 6, The Lantern of Unspoken Wishes. On the 6th eve of his journey through the dream-woven realms, the Dreamwalker found himself drifting through a sea of softly glowing fog that tasted faintly of honeyed silence and forgotten lullabies. His silver-threaded journal cradled beneath his cloak like a heartbeat. The stars above blinked slowly, like eyes just beginning to dream. And from the horizon rose the gentle flicker of distant lights, each pulsing like a wish whispered into the night by someone too shy to say it aloud. These lights led him to a vast floating marshland, known only to the slumbering mind, the mire of unspoken wishes, where lanterns hung in the mist, tethered to invisible strings of longing. Each lantern contained a hope never shared, a desire never voiced, glowing quietly with all the things people wished for in secret but never dared to seek. At the center of the marsh sat a small boat made of driftwood and lullabies, waiting for the Dreamwalker as if it had known he would come. As he stepped aboard, the boat began to drift of its own accord, gliding past flickering lanterns that hummed gentle tunes, a child wishing for their parents to see them, an old soul yearning to dance again, a lonely heart longing simply to be heard. The Dreamwalker felt their presence in the air like the scent of rain on dry earth. Soon, he reached the heart of the marsh where an ancient figure waited, the keeper of the lanterns, draped in robes that shimmered with candlelight and tears, their face a blur of all those who had ever wished in silence. The keeper spoke in a language of sighs and hushes, explaining that many lanterns had begun to dim and fall into the marsh, swallowed by the weight of dreams. Never believed in. Once a lantern was forgotten, it was lost forever to the bog below, where sorrow sank them like stones. The keeper handed the Dreamwalker a key, silver and warm, and pointed toward the largest lantern of them all, flickering dangerously above the mire. This was the lantern of echoed wishes, the first ever made, containing the combined yearning of all dreamers who had ever felt unseen. If it fell, the rest would surely follow. The Dreamwalker climbed a staircase of drifting lily pads, each step a question he had once asked in his own youth. Will I be enough? Does my voice matter? Can dreams still come true? As he reached the great lantern, it trembled violently, threatened by the weight of millions of unsaid words. He touched it gently, and in that moment opened his journal and spoke aloud every wish he had ever written but never shared. Small ones, like wanting more time, and large ones, like wishing the world would stop hurrying. With each confession, the lantern glowed stronger, swelling with warmth and golden light. One by one, the dimmed lanterns across the marsh began to relight, their strings pulling taut with renewed hope. The keeper wept silent joy and gifted the Dreamwalker a lantern of his own, small, soft blue, and pulsing gently, a place to store the wishes of others he met along his path. As the boat guided him away, The journal inscribed itself again. Mire of unspoken wishes, longings relit, silence spoken, hidden hopes honored, the unseen now seen. And now, gentle dreamer, as you rest your weary thoughts and the hush of night wraps round you like a soft quilt, know that even your quietest wishes have weight, and somewhere in the fog, a lantern glows just for you. Sleep well, and may your dreams be brave enough to whisper. Dreamwalker Diaries, Episode 7, The Bellmaker Beneath the Mountain on the Seventh Night. As dreams deepened into the realm where stars themselves murmured lullabies, the dreamwalker was drawn toward the pulse of a memory long buried under layers of sleep and silence, his journal glowing with a resonance that throbbed like a distant chime. Guided by a trail of echoing hums that vibrated beneath his feet, he ventured through a canyon carved not by rivers, but by forgotten songs, each stone inscribed with lyrics that had once held meaning. The path led him to a great mountain, the Bell Mountain, whose peaks were capped in clouds shaped like drifting feathers, and from whose base a soft metallic ringing could be heard, as though the mountain itself was singing in its sleep. He entered a narrow crevice lit by fireflies that blinked in rhythmic patterns, revealing ancient symbols of sound and silence etched along the walls. The deeper he journeyed, the louder the tones became, not harsh or clanging, but soothing and rhythmic, like the heartbeat of time itself. At last, he reached a massive underground chamber where hundreds of bells hung in perfect stillness, suspended not from rafters, but from strands of memory and wind. In the center stood the bellmaker, a gentle giant cloaked in molten bronze and midnight, with eyes that shimmered like polished copper. The bellmaker forged bells from emotions too complex for words, grief wrapped in gratitude, longing laced with love, regret softened by forgiveness, and each bell was tuned to a single dreamer's soul, waiting to be rung when their heart was ready to remember. But something had gone wrong. The bellmaker explained that a new silence had begun to settle across the chamber. A silence born not of peace, but of forgetting. Bells were no longer ringing. Dreams that once resonated through the world now echoed only faintly, muffled by distraction and despair. The dreamwalker was shown a bell with his own name on it, smooth, silver, untouched. A bell that had never rung because the dream it was meant to awaken had not yet been spoken. To awaken the mountain and restore the song of sleeping souls, the dreamwalker had to ring the bells not with his hands, but with the truths he carried. He stood in the center of the chamber and opened his journal, reading aloud every story he had gathered so far of the clockmaker and the timeless key, the garden where time sleeps, the archivist of the endless stare, the lantern of unspoken wishes. And with each tale, a different bell began to vibrate, humming softly, then louder, until the entire mountain sang with a harmony of remembered dreams. The bellmaker wept molten tears and gifted him a chime, a small bell that, when rung, would call forth any forgotten dream from the depths of silence. As the dreamwalker emerged from the mountain into the cool night air, the stars above him swayed gently to the rhythm of the ringing below. His journal inscribed a new Bell Mountain song awakened, dreams remembered, echoes restored, silence turned sacred. And now, dear dreamer, as you close your eyes and let the hush of night enfold you, listen closely in the quiet between your breaths. There may be a bell waiting to ring, a note just for you. Sleep deeply, and may your dreams sing you home good night.